Hello, hello.
जब हमने यहाँ पे चेक करा था ना तो हमने वो किया था। तो कोई बात नहीं रहने दो सर। आवाज देखी अब बोलो।
Hello, 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 hello.
हाँ हाँ, आ रही है। ठीक है, डन डन। डिले
Also, if someone is having chewing gum in their mouth, spit it right away. Go out. Good afternoon, everyone. Team CID welcomes all of you to Synergy 22, the Marketing and International Business Conclave. Everyone is requested to sit properly and with utmost professionalism during the session. This will be an interactive session, so the batch is free to ask any relevant questions from the speakers. For asking any question, kindly raise your hand, greet the speaker, then introduce yourself and ask your question. Do not interrupt the speaker while he is answering your question and do thank him after his response. Please sit in an orderly posture during the whole session. We expect a formal demeanor out of respect for the speakers. So, you should be interactive and attentive throughout the session. Strict and immediate action will be taken against defaulters. Now, the attendance. Akshat Gupta, Soham Kekre, Bhavuk Anand, Anmol Kumar, Dipanshu Mehta, Nishtha Bhatti, Abhishek Pathak, Tanya Garg, Akash Bansal, Simran Sethi, Harshita Jain, Jayant Yadav, मितांशु त्यागी, अर्नब जैन, प्रवल ग्रोवर, अरशद, अबर्तक भट्टाचार्य, अर्श पाठक, अभिनव गर्ग, अभिषेक शर्मा, आरुषि गौर, आकांक्षा गुप्ता, अनुज भूत, अमन माथुर, अंबिका मल्होत्रा, निदिश डोगरा, अंकित भंडारी, अनुकर्ष चौहान, साहिल वर्मा, निशांत दुआ, भव्या बरेजा, हरकीरत सिंह अरोड़ा, कोमल अग्रवाल, सौम्यजीत ठाकुर, मोहित पुनीता, पूने नंद सिन्हा, सिद्धांत झा, सुजल धिरानी, तनुश्री, सुदीप, ध्रुव गुरसानी, चिराग कंसल, रुद्र प्रकाश राउत, करण अग्रवाल, खुशी अरोड़ा, मुस्कान चोपड़ा, पीयूष शर्मा, आस्था अरोड़ा, अनुराग कुमार, अमन जैन, नितिन कुमार, अमन मित्तल, महक बंसल, मनीष गोयल, श्रेया बैजल, वासु छाबड़ा, अनमोल भारद्वाज, शुभम राज, जयशंकर, महिमा शर्मा, रामलाला, रोहिणी वार्ष्णे, समर्थ वत्स, सृष्टि जल्दी, अमन गुप्ता, तुषार छाबड़ा, दीक्षांत वत्स, शुभम लूथरा, आदित्य वर्मा, शशांक त्रिवेदी, पलक दुआ, बेल्थसर मोहंता, चित्रांग भार्गवा, जलंधर अमर सिंह राजपुरोहित, शिवांगी भारद्वाज, हिमांशु शेखर, जानवी मलिक, नम्रा फरूकी, कुशल सिंगला, मानव सतीजा, मानसी जैन, मौसम कुमार, नमन शर्मा, नयन श्रोफ, निकुंज बजाज, निशांत बिंदल, सुवीद वर्मा, सुवीद वर्मा, विश्वस्त शुक्ला, मंदर अवचार, सचिन चड्डा, आयुष मिश्रा, नेहा अग्रवाल, आदर्श सुब्रमण्यम, आदर्श एब्सेंट राइट, अमन अग्रवाल, अंकुश अग्रवाल, हरकीरत सिंह, आर्यन ठाकुर, आरुषि सृलेच, आशना पॉल, यश कलानी, हर्षदीप सिंह कालरा, तरुण चिकारा, जागृत मिगलानी, दीपक हांडा, कार्तिक जैन, केतन प्रकाश, हर्ष खत्री, मुस्कान गोयल, गौरव गर्ग, नव्या शर्मा, मनन, जय मनमानी, राहुल तांतिया, राज गौर, ऋषभ गुप्ता, शुभांगी गुप्ता, संदीपन चटर्जी, सांवरी पाठक, साशा चंद, सात्विक रस्तोगी, अनुषी कंसल, पार्थ शर्मा, समीक्षा खन्ना, सृष्टि गर्ग, कुश सिंगला, तरुण पटीदर, शिवम चौहान, विहान, यश खत्री, दीक्षु धवन, now all those whose names haven't been in the list, please stand up. What's your name? Daksh from BDA. Ankit Mishra. Kshitij. Can you spell your name? Yeah, sit down. Good afternoon, everyone. I, Ayusha Mittal, on behalf of the Corporate Interaction Division of FORE School of Management, take immense pleasure in welcoming you all to our annual Marketing International Business Conclave, Synergy 2022. We have had enlightening sessions with some of the best leaders from the corporate world, and today is no different. Through their experience, knowledge, and expertise, our honored guests have had a profound impact on helping the students to develop deep into their domains and derive valuable insight. The topic for today's international business panel is the global economic shift and opportunities. Our esteemed panelists would be covering a broad range of topics regarding the same in today's session. This would include the road ahead for the Global Business Committee in light of an impending recession. Is Asia becoming the new economic powerhouse? And rethinking business performance in global value chains. I take immense pleasure in inviting the panelists for today. Our panel includes Mr. Satyam Manohar. He is the national head offline business at Paytm. He has an experience of 14 plus years in the FMCG, digital mobility, and fintech industries and is an expert in sales and marketing, profit and loss management, and managing diverse multinational teams. He has worked with reputed companies in the past such as Kellogg's, Nivea India, and Ola. Next is Mr. Rahul Kapoor. He is Vice President, Global Supply Chain Sales at Accenture. He has 24 years of multifaceted leadership experience in strategy, operations, supply chain, and program management. He is an alumnus of IIT Delhi and FMS. Next is Mr. Suyash Mehrotra. He is the business head at Imami Limited. He is an accomplished sales and marketing leader with 13 plus years of experience in driving enterprise sales and consumer business through solution selling and innovative RTM model. He excels in developing and sustaining high performance startups within large organizations. Next is Mr. Prateek Dhingra. He is the Vice President and Head of International Business at Metal. He is an expert in setting up sales processes from scratch, fostering a culture of growth, customer advocacy, and forging strong relations with external partners. Next is Mr. Satish Sati. He is the Global Head of Marketing at Tata Consultancy Services. He is an experienced executive with over several years of global experience. He has managed broad range of leadership roles ranging from business development, product management and marketing, industry analyst relationship, and regional business operations. Once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. Now, without further ado, I would like to hand over the proceedings to Mr. Satyam Manohar. The stage is all yours, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I think one thing you missed in the introduction, which when we were having a discussion, Mr. Satish had put it beautifully, that we may come from different walks of life and different sectors, but we are all students. Agree? And I would say, when students interact with students, we should have more energy and we should make it more vibrant rather than this going like a 9 p.m. a fight going on a news channel. Yeah. So let's not make it. But please make it a two-way course, right? So we would have our pieces of information, but we would really appreciate a very vivid audience. So jo bhi mind mein ho, please feel free to put on, so that we're going in the right direction, which is the student direction. Yeah. Good. So one more thing is the fact that if you like any comment, if you like any point or a data, we can do a thumbs up. Yeah. And if you feel maza nahi aa raha, you give a boxing. Huh? So we know, and I know my duty as a moderator कि कहाँ पे मुझे यहीं से volume कम करके फिर pitch करना है, right? So anyway, but good to begin on a light note. Thanks FORE team for making me the moderator. I don't have any professional experience as a moderator, but I'm pretty sure with the esteemed panel which we have and the rich experience which people will have, we should by the end of the day add a lot of value to this discussion. And before I begin, a very short exercise. If you have a pen or paper, just write 2 3 expectations from this entire discussion, right? Or if you could have, if is anybody having hi, can we have some help? Or can we have a quick 2 minutes where people put in their expectations and be as candid can be, so that we end up covering it before we come to the questionnaire session? What does the panel say? Sounds great, yeah? Great. So in one words, you can pick in, and the house is yours before we begin. Let's open you up, guys, before we further charge you up. I think we can begin with you, ma'am. Ma'am, we can begin with you, perhaps. What would you like? In very brief words, you can.
Lot of energy.
Yeah.
Lot of energy because all of you come from I think the way is the dynamic between myself, the student of international business.
Wow.
So I think a lot of energy.
Yeah.
That's the first thing which I would say.
I think a big round of applause to show how much the energy is there in the room. Yeah, thank you. So we write energy should flow always. Anybody from the last seat or any seat? Yeah, please, sir.
I think, sir, that how Indian business houses will change the global scenario, or will lead the global scenario.
Yeah. So how Indian businesses change the global landscape. We'll cover that.
How impending decision actually will affect the common man.
How the common man is affected. Yeah. And can you be a bit more specific? Because we, discuss among ourselves, and we are trying to put up a 15-minute discussion on how the students are going to get impacted, mostly focusing at the people present in the room. Yes, sir.
Sir, what is the scope of India as a producer to export its businesses in the outside world?
Yeah.
Because we have a huge potential to grow different businesses.
Yeah.
In the Western countries, they have a huge potential to buy the things. And
Correct.
So
Got
how
it.
can we
So
grow?
India's potential as a product manufacturer, more from an exporter lens. Yeah. We'll cover products as well as, and we have a very rich experience in services as well, which Mr. Satish will cover in detail.
Hello, sir.
Huh.
Hello, sir. My name
Yeah.
is Nanshroff. Sir, what I feel is since companies are trying to move out of China for their production,
Yeah.
so what is the road ahead for young entrepreneurs who are now graduating after 2 years or 3 years maybe? So what is the road ahead for us, and what should we target so that we can be as competitive as we can?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question. We will definitely cover in our aspect of discussion with China moving out, a lot of things moving to India. How is the Indian business landscape changing with respect to, again, a global lens is what we would cover. And how does it impact you?
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
My name is Ram Lala. Sir, my question is, how does geopolitics change the international business? Because
Lovely.
geopolitics
Yeah.
is something like it will always changes, not ongoing. I am not
Correct.
relating to the ongoing war, but how the geopolitics
Got
affect
it.
the business.
Got it. We'll cover that in detail, and I would take that personally myself. Yeah. Anything else? Any other expectations? Yeah. Any कुछ format में light रखना है, Hindi, English, some other language, just feel free. So, thanks.
We would like to know from your experience what examples are there and globalization, what you have learned from your experience about
Super.
globalization.
Yeah, from self experiences on globalization. I hope somebody's making a note of each piece and you. Sure. Yeah.
I would request Madam to talk about how war is affecting international business, specifically India, and how India has been very policy helping it.
Got it. How the wall? Yeah. Yeah. Got it. The wall is not Rahul Dravid here, so. The war. Yeah. Got it.
Good afternoon to everyone. My question is, in the light of the impending recession, what are the steps that are the corporates taking?
Yeah. We'll cover that. We'll cover that. Good. I think, yeah, please, if anything left, we have last 30 seconds.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is a little to you guys that how your experiences have molded your knowledge and framed your mindset with the knowledges you've gained.
Thank you. So we'll try to have the journey that what did we learn in our colleges or schools, and how did we further enrich it with the experience to get to the learning part. Yeah. Yeah.
My expectation basically would be more from business perspective that how it is evolving, especially because we are measuring IT, so how global business scenario is evolving and changing, considering the recent pandemic and all those effects that happen.
Yeah. Lovely. Got it.
Hello, good evening, sir. I am Tanushree. So, my expectation from you all is that since there is a lot of war going between countries, so how it is going to affect the supply chain management, and now the countries are like in spite of outsourcing, they want to become self-sufficient in producing goods. So, what's the road ahead for the bigger organization?
Sure. We'll cover that. Yes. We'll come. We'll cover that in detail. At least we'll cover India. We'll cover the Asia Pacific, countries like Vietnam. We'll also try and put some light on what's happening in Middle East. Let's come to that. Okay, all right. All sorted? Good. So I think straight to the people over here, and I would like to go with the first question: the road ahead for the global business community in the light of the impending recession. What I would say, we would go sequentially with the questions, and the fourth question which we're going to put is a specific lens of the student framework, right? That with your lenses, how the global experiences which we're going to talk are things where you can learn from, right? And what are the sectors or opportunities you should tap or upskill, right? So we'll make that candid. Just be patient with the questions. And how do you want to do it? After we will put up the house open in the next 1 hour or so. I think that should be fine. Or that should be fine. Yeah. So I would request each one of you to be pretty patient and just keep your note of your question, because a lot of them will get questioned in the 4 parts. And once we finish that, we're at 3:35, so we'll try and finish it by 4:30. So 4:30 to 5 is open house is what we'll keep. Yeah. Yeah. And the rules remain. Huh? Okay. Cool. I would straight away throw the mic to Mr. Satish here. I think he's the most experienced of us among here. And sir, before you can share your views here on the first question.
Good afternoon to all of you. So the topic is quite vast, varied set of subsections in the topic, and a lot of questions which you guys have asked. I think this will cover the most of the agenda of today. Let me start. Start is always difficult. So let me start with a word which is quite popular these days, and a lot of international IMF report is talking about, World Bank is talking about. Most of the corporates are gearing themselves about the word which is recession. I'll take you to a little bit, in late 90s, when I started my career in 90, I can say, from 90 till 2022, we have seen 3-4 cycles of recession. Sometime or most of the time recession comes, many industries feel the jerk of recession. Sometimes you don't even feel or you don't even know that recession has come and the wave has already passed. I was talking to one of your students while he was with me from home to this place, that some of the industries, they look for recession. You may think that, what am I saying? They look for recession. Like the way a sea surfer wait for a wave. The moment wave comes, he takes the opportunity and ride on the wave and enjoy his or test his surfing skills. Similarly, recession also gives you a chance to change your gears, learn towards new dynamics of the business, prepare yourself to the new dynamics of that business, and move on. Life will keep on moving. There was a time when Y2K popped up. A lot of industries were talking about what will be Y2K, how it will impact, what will be journey after Y2K. And we all know in the panel that the Y2K wave came, settled, and so many opportunities popped up after Y2K. The IT industry today is one of the most lucrative and one of the best revenue earner for India in terms of export when it comes to IT services export. India is moving towards IT products also as in competition with the global companies. But I can say very confidently that services part is one of the strongest part when it comes to IT export. One of the question was export of product, but export of services. So recession is a word which a lot of corporates are gearing themselves. In my personal view, this recession is going to bring a lot of new opportunities for which the young generation of India, members of FORE School of Management, students of FORE School of Management, can certainly look into those areas and hone your skills and move towards the new waves. I'll take a few more minutes to explain on this.
All yours.
So one point, one takeaway, recession is, I'll not use the word recession. I'll say the industry is changing the gears. There are so many examples which will we speak as we move forward. Yes, industry is changing gears. It will change gears. The word is called as recession. It has started. Little bit of impacts are already there in the market. Companies are changing themselves. They are preparing themselves. What is there in for us? That is the most important question which we will cover as we move forward. But one thing I would like to start as an opening one is it is going to open a lot of new areas. One of the area which comes to my mind immediately is the robotic sciences. The new era for Asia, for India to tap on young entrepreneurs, students, corporate guys in the coming life of yours will be that the robotic area is going to certainly hit. And it's going to open new dimension of economy for India. With that, I'll take a pause and pass it to other members, and then we'll dwell on this.
Yeah, hi. Suyash has got a very rich experience from a product front. Suyash, perhaps you'd like to share your views.
Anyways, I guess I can be loud from here also. I've had a very tricky relationship with the recession. I actually graduated at the peak of recession. I'm a 2009 batcher and your neighbor from IAFT. So Lehman went down, and 1 month later is when my placements began. So I've had a tricky relationship with recession, and now again, when recession is arriving, I'm on the verge of starting my own business. So now I've seen 2 recessions. Mr. Satish spoke about the number of recessions he's seen in his 3-decade-long career. Actually, let me stretch this even further. Let me take you back all the way to our independence, 1947, 48. India obviously got its independence. Countries like Japan, Germany, they were completely devastated. Second World War. Back in those days, the global merchandise exports was close to about $60 billion. US obviously was the leader. I think $13 billion was US's share. India's share remarkably was about $1.6 billion, 2.2%, which was more than the combined share of China, Japan, Germany put together back in 48. We had a clean slate, but we chose to go with an amazing socialist philosophy. 15 years later, the global merchandise trade was close to about $157 billion. India's share actually dropped. From 1.6, we became 1.3. Germany became 15 billion. Japan became 10 billion. Come to 1993. At the time when we went with a begging bowl to IMF, pawning our gold, India's exports was $22 billion. Global exports was close to about $3.7 trillion, sorry. Now, by this time, Germany, Japan were together contributing almost $800 billion worth of exports. China was 92. And in 2019, when global merchandise trade stood at about $19 trillion, India's share was $322 billion. China was $2.5 trillion. Germany was $1.5 trillion. US was $1.6 trillion. And Japan was $700 billion. Now, this is amidst all the recessions, all the Cold Wars, all the complications, all the geopolitical issues that we've still seen the economy, global exports grow. And when global exports grow, it also adds to the welfare of people. Today, if we find ourselves as a low income, perpetually developing country, and we look at countries like Japan, Germany, one of the fundamental reasons is that they've actually tapped into the global value chains and have become strong exporting nations. A lot of focus, I guess, would be on Asia. We should be really afraid of Vietnam, really. Their exports are almost same as India now, $360 billion. India is $400 billion. Their share as percentage of their GDP is 105%. They are growing. The fact is that recessions and all this is, in my opinion, a play on words. Let the researchers, let the politicians do their job. Business environment has never been better, and it will only become better. So 20, 25 years down the line, when you guys would be delivering lectures like these, I'm sure we'll be talking about an economy, a global world economy where merchandise trade would be close to about $50 trillion. And then you would be wondering that, hey, there was a recession talk happening in 2022. The idea is that which companies, which industry, or which country is actually willing to put their hands up and say that we are willing to capture these opportunities. Opportunities are plenty. Anybody who tells you that geopolitics or macroeconomic environment has hampered opportunities, he's bluffing actually. And he's trying to give you some sort of a gyan which makes you feel that actually you don't know much about the world and we know it better. Opportunities are plenty. India is in a good place. Whether we capitalize on it is completely dependent upon the industry and the country. In fact, in my opinion, we're pretty much at the cusp of 1948 kind of a scenario. Whatever direction we choose now will pretty much shape up the future for everyone.
Yeah. Very, very rightly put. And Pratik, what are your views here?
So, first of all, I think the question here is that how big this recession is going to be and how long, because next year or maybe after that, you will be applying for jobs, and if there are not sufficient openings or if the competition is very high, which Suyas has faced in 2009. I think 2009, there were very less jobs and companies were not hiring at that time. So I think good thing is, and I think Mr. Satish can also add because he has seen 3 different recessions. We have only seen 2 of them. That this time, I think the overall economic, if we see the overall economic outlook, 2009, India was, I think, eighth or the ninth largest economy in terms of GDP. China was, I think, third or fourth.
Germany was number 2. Germany was 4. Japan was number 2.
Japan was number 2. But now there is a shift. China is number 2. India, we are seeing
Number 5.
we are at number 5th, but the speed with which we are increasing, especially in the service sector. Maybe if we see on the service sector comparison, we will be the third largest. In fact, for next year, our GDP projections are 6.1, which is highest, even higher than China. And so there is so it's not just a US-driven phenomena that is there. China is a kind of a closed country. It's a consumer-driven market. Like there are local companies serving to local citizens, and they're exporting. India, on the other hand, is also emerging. Like we are seeing, I don't think we are seeing any dip in terms of our own consumption. external factors are there, but internal consumptions, we are not seeing like people are bullish. And the other important point I want to highlight is recession is also dependent on the confidence level, how the market is confident. We have seen in 2020 when the COVID cases
sentiment going into the business.
When the COVID cases were increases, the stock market crashed. The companies were not in that bad shape, but it is the confidence of the market. Now we are seeing that because people have already seen a lot in 2020, 2021. So there is a risk-taking ability. I know a lot of people who have not opened a demat account in the last 10 years, but they opened it during the lockdown period.
Yes.
Lockdown period.
And just to give you a number, countries like US, they have almost 30% of their economy trading in equities, right? Of the entire GDP, which I'm talking about. An Indian figure would be roughly around 3-4%, which has gone to 5-6% only. So imagine the journey which we have to cover. And where is our money mostly? It's either in gold, it's either in land, which is not even on paper. Right? So, yeah.
So overall, I think from a risk-taking ability, from a confidence standpoint, the world is prepared. Like there's a recession coming. We already have a experience, which is a very recent experience. And I think people are like working in that direction. Other thing I wanted to highlight is how we should look from a micro standpoint also, from an individual standpoint. How is recession going to impact me? So one thing which we look up to is the sector which we are working. Is it an IT sector? Is it a banking sector? Are we working for an outsourcing company? If you are working for an outsourcing company, then there can be a higher impact. Or are we working for a domestic company? Like whatever we are doing is going to have an impact on the Indian economy. I think that is one direction to see this. The other thing is if recession is coming and I have to focus on my skills, then what are those skills? So I'll share some kind of examples. So in 2020, a lot of people had a salary cut. We had a lot of jobs, especially in travel, especially in journal services domain. People were actually fired from their jobs. At that time, they were not going deeper into their sector. For example, if somebody lost a job in the travel sector, they started looking for other sectors in which they can work. A lot of commerce graduates started learning coding at that time because they thought that IT sector is immune to the lockdown. IT sector is expanding. That's where a lot of people from the BCom background, they started learning coding and they started working in that direction. Then we also saw a lot of online learning that was booming up during that time. So a lot of people like were posting certificates, which is not the trend now. Now nobody is working in that direction. So I think it's a debatable point that whether improving your skills in a horizontal direction is the right strategy, or going deeper into. So maybe the travel sector is not doing well, but can I go deeper into that sector? That's a point which again needs to be thought. And every recession is a different recession. It brings different opportunities.
Yeah. Bang on. And Mr. Kapoor, your views.
Yeah, so I think this talk of recession has put everyone here in recession. Okay, so don't be so gloomy.
Yes, and from a critical.
So the topic is impending recession. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So there is no recession right now. The definition of recession is that you have to have negative GDP growth for 2 successive quarters.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? India is not going to be in recession.
Yes.
Most of Asia will not be in recession. This global recession thing is from a Western perspective, right? So I will quote from a World Bank report also. There is 50% chance of recession in 2023. And in my view, that is for the Western economies because of the problem that they've landed themselves into. Now, Few points. Why? Why is this? So COVID created supply disruptions, right? Supply disruptions created labor market pressures. To answer this, what did they do? US printed money, lots of money, right? Where did that money go? It came into Indian economy also. It went into the world economy. Was there equivalent rise in productivity? No. Obviously, this has caused an inflation. Inflation this inflation is supposed to reduce your GDP growth. That is why this thing of impending recession. So this global business, this question itself is from a Western perspective, right? Global business community, okay, that's the Western countries are going to be affected. Asia, no. Impending recession, certainly not for India, correct? So now the answer lies in the first part of the question, the road ahead. What is the road ahead? Control inflation. Simple. How do you control inflation? We need currency stability and we need growth. So for growth, we need to shift policy from reducing consumption to boosting production. Right now, all the central banks in the world are raising their interest rates. They want to curb the flow of money so that people don't have money to spend, consumption reduces. So stop that. Okay. Next is improving productivity. So this requires policies to generate additional investments. So we'll come to that subsequently during our discussion, how India and many parts of Asia are well poised to take on this challenge. Finally, a few points from my side, how to fight inflation, So easing of labor market constraints. So they have landed up in a problem by closing down their borders, reducing the flow of the exchange of labor, not granting visas. There are visa delays. So if we need to fight recession, we need to ensure ease of increased labor force participation and facilitate reallocation of displaced workers. Somebody is laid off from one country, he can go and get a job in another country. India does not face this problem right now. India has excess labor. And global supply of commodities. We have to ensure free and transparent exchange of commodities. That means when we came here, your professor told us that from this panel, she wants energy. The world wants energy. It's all about energy. Okay. So the war in Ukraine is about energy, different kind of energy, right? So your food and energy supply has to be unconstrained. And a lot of consumption, spurious consumption of energy results in pollution. So obviously transition to low carbon sources of energy. Then we need to strengthen the global trade networks. So we need a rule-based economic order, right? So we cannot have show me your face, I'll show you the rule. Right now, the US is trying to cap oil prices. I mean, there's a big debate going on. They're trying to cap oil prices while it's being shipped on the water. But if oil is going through a pipeline or in some specific route, there is no cap. That means it is targeted to countries like India and China because we get oil from the sea route. But Europe, which gets oil through land route, there is no capping of prices. Okay. So this is a sort of a self-inflicted problem in my view. Okay, and mind you, my views are personal views. These are not the views of my organization. These are views that I am communicating. Okay, so if we do these things, no recession, good jobs, everybody happy. Okay.
Thank you. I think very optimistic answer and good to see some thumbs up going on. मेरी हालत तो स्टूडेंट जैसी है कि मेरे सारे पॉइंट बोल दिए गए हैं अभी, तो मैं क्या बोलूं. But Hindi is good with all, right? So let's get some energy up. पहली चीज यार, this is going slightly deviating. I'm not saying this. Gautam Buddha has said, if we have got a human body, तो दुख आएगा, रोक नहीं सकते उसे, right? और second thing which he said very beautifully, कि सारे दुख की जड़ इच्छाएं हैं. The root cause of all suffering is desire, right? So I will not delve on the second point here, but coming to this main point, that the economic recession cycle, they'll always come, right? And the difference between a winner and a non-winner, I would say, and I put on winners like Warren Buffett, right? So if you guys know, there were two people, one partner Warren Buffett and one Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett kept investing in these recession cycles, the other gentleman didn't. That's the difference between perhaps an $80 billion empire from a down-to-earth guy to somebody who quit, right? So I would say that, as everybody put in over here, that you will get a lot of opportunities flowing in, extreme opportunities, right? And you should always focus on, and I'm so happy that very positively you added India is just skipping. In fact, as far as my calculation and understanding goes in, we had a GDP growth of Q1 this year by 13.2%, and most of the countries are going in recession, but India is not, right? India is not. And the good news is India is actually going to drive a lot of trends which we're going to speak on, but I would like to touch on a couple of them. Yeah. So, before I touch on the trends, मैं बड़ी crystal clear bullet points में बताता हूँ क्या क्या shift होने जा रहा है. Number one is the shift towards new age businesses from an Indian perspective, or let's say just call it a startup business, to grow profitable. Now, if you know India as a country, guys, which is the country with the highest unicorns in the world, if anyone can answer that? United States, number 2. Number 3, how many unicorns in India? 100 plus, right? So मैंने Mensa brand के बाद मैंने बहुत अच्छी counting नहीं करी, but you know how many of them are profitable out of 100 or 105 odd? There are only 12, 13 startups which are profitable, right? So what happened to this entire industry? And I would like this very, very critical from a global lens also, because there are a lot of startups coming up across the globe which are actually way more non-profitable, right? Or undergoing losses, yeah? So previously, let's say the companies were more focusing on something like, and this exactly happened after the Flipkart and the Walmart merger, is that the companies which were focusing very heavily on profitability, they started focusing on just acquisition or monthly active user. All right. So people just created users and tried to stop the churn, but the core profitability got missed. The second trend is a lot of people focused very greatly on marketing, but the core of the 4P actually is your product more than the communication. So always this is fundamental rule, and most of the CEOs who do exceedingly well, they keep the product team directly under them, right? So it's product price, collar mein padha hoga, I think, product price, place promotion and all that. So this is one of the trends I would say, is that if it's not profitable, and I'll also quote a couple of examples of organizations which are profitable. Zerodha, amazing product. How many of you have used Zerodha? Wow. How many of you actively trade? Oh, wow. I'll catch up with you for a few tips. Organizations like something like a Noise Labs, which is world's 5th largest smartwatch company. It's a bootstrapped, profitable startup, right? Then there are a lot of startups which are peeping into profitability, right? So this is perhaps the business model which will sustain. This is no longer the time, because out of recession and the currency fluctuation which Mr. spoke about, it is more going to be FDI is going out, right? Because the rates of interest is going to go up in the US. जो पैसा इंडिया में लगा था वो बाहर आएगा, जो इंडिया में बाहर आएगा वहां पे गिरेगा, तो यहां पे फिर दर्द होगा, right? You read a lot that X and Y startup fired so many companies, or right? Why I'm able to speak of this pain, because I am actually working for a fintech company which was valued at $15 billion, supposed to go double, but after it got listed in the market, it actually got halved. But the beautiful thing is we are getting to learn how to collectively take it to profitability, right? So that's one of the trends. Second, I would like to speak on the omnipresence channel. Right? COVID, if you look, and specifically from a consumer goods or a retail perspective, the way you shop has changed. the way you pay has changed. The delivery time has actually shrunk from a 1 week to 1 day to 10 minutes or pata nahi what not. So that's going to be very critical. Thirdly, the global participation in digitization, the countries which will take the digital, or I should say the companies which take the digital transformation ahead, else they'll be wiped out. Like Nokia. Nokia didn't do anything wrong. Did Nokia do anything wrong? Can somebody tell me what did they do wrong, Nokia? Yeah, please. Absolutely. So they did not have that far vision, right? Which is extremely, extremely critical for an organization. And that's how a digital company like an Apple is replacing a watch player, an alarm, a clock, and a radio, or whatnot. There are a list of things which you can. Companies like Moser Bear, right? They were pretty big at one point of time, right? But the speed of innovation, especially from previously it used to be mostly with the ITS company, but right now it's spread across, right? And you would see a lot of consolidations, a lot of changes in those sphere. Then labor market constraint, as he beautifully pointed out, is going to be more pronounced in the Western geography, which are actually going in recession. The entire war phenomenon has changed a lot of segments, a lot of sectors. And I would encourage the participants here when we speak, you can point out the sectors which you're interested in. So let me give you an example of a sector. For example, agriculture. Right? How many of you know that Russia and Ukraine together used to make close to 30% of world's wheat? Right? They were called the bread basket of the world. And who's supplying to them now? India. So from 2016 to now, India's export, or I should say, first of all, India's manufacturing capacity is actually standing at 100 million metric tons, right? Which is next only to China at 135. Right? We are also the largest producer of something like a tea. We have done some formidable changes with respect to the rural infra, the presence of electricity, fertilizers, right? So even if you are in the stock market, you would see all these stocks going up, right?
See, that wheat thing is the reason for the pollution also.
Yes.
Now that India is producing unnecessarily high quantities of wheat. That is because government gives subsidy and there is an agreement that whatever is produced is bought. And so the farmers have no incentive of producing any other crop.
Ma'am, I think you need, can you get her a coffee, please? I just hope I'm not too boring here.
So that's it. So in a lighter way,
Yes,
I was talking about India's contribution to wheat and also to the pollution here.
Yes, so it's actually the India's export, as he rightly said, there are certain setbacks as well. But the export has grown from $50 million USD in 2016. It's $1 billion now, right? So this is the way India is capturing on these constraints, because you do not have such high labor force present across, right? And then definitely there are two things again to notice. One is EODB, where India is consistently going up. Then second is, which we really need to work on, is the Human Development Index, where you'll see a lot of Scandinavian countries really, really going up. So these are perhaps 4 or 5, key pointers which I could, add to it. And then I would also like to talk on a couple of trends, I think, which will form the backbone of the entire discussion later on. First and foremost, if you see a couple of trends emerging, first and foremost, India becoming the next China. And let me put some word to it. What are the rules of geopolitics? There are only 2 rules. Rule number 1, don't trust China. I'm not saying this. All the countries are saying this. Rule number 1, don't trust China. Russia has said this. US has said this. Europe has said. Rule number 2, don't forget rule 1. Okay. So this is where India is actually taking the leap. And I'll talk about 4 or 5 trends if you allow me a few minutes here. And perhaps we can build on this. First is a lot of, and somebody put it, a lot of manufacturing base is actually coming to India. Now, अगर आप थोड़ा सा इकोनॉमिक्स और अपनी थ्योरी में जाओगे, एक डेवलप्ड कंट्री के लिए जो 3 स्टेजेस होते हैं, वो होते हैं, नंबर 1 इज एग्रेरियन इकोनॉमी, देन इट शिफ्ट्स टू समथिंग लाइक अ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, देन इट कम टू सर्विसेज. इंडिया का वो जो सेकंड पार्ट था वो थोड़ा मिसिंग था. we've always been an agrarian economy. In fact, till 90s we used to like the fact, we used to celebrate a lot of rural India. And then the services economy came in, which really took our country global. But and this is what China is doing right now. So if you know, China is putting a curb on their services, pushing more of manufacturing. Sub China, which is one of the biggest edtech firms, has been pressed, and they are a non-profitable organization. Imagine this being with a business. Secondly, what happened with Alibaba Group? If you guys are aware or not aware, so it doesn't need an answer. So that is one step which India is taking in a very democratic fashion, I would say. So manufacturing, and I would love people if you bring up your sectors, and perhaps we can talk during the later part of the discussion. But name one semiconductor $22 billion deal with Foxconn and Vedanta Group, or whether it be something like a mobile phone. We are almost the second largest manufacturer. Imagine everything coming with the semiconductor. We'll be the largest mobile manufacturer. Then the entire EV base is actually shifting to India, right? Where there are a lot of, so my past company, Ola, and I'm not giving an advertisement of my company, but they just manufactured 1 lakh scooters. There's Hero coming in. And by 2030, we have a plan of almost an 80% electric vehicle. And this, I'm not saying, Nitin Gadkari has said, right? So this is the ambition. And to couple it up, let's say the sectors like housing, which are booming. Why? Because the infra has exploded. COVID created a larger home, but in reality sector, infra, which is more than 100 billion project, you would have heard of Gati Shakti project. Anyone? Yeah, that's transforming India. And I'll give you quote an example. 4 days back, I reached from here to Meerut in 45 minutes flat. Anybody from Western UP or Meerut here? Yeah. So perhaps you'll touch base with me. Good. Then I would say a lot of Japanese companies, they have actually made a plan to come to India. And I just made a list of those companies: Canon, Toyota, KDDI, Kobe Steel, Mitsubishi. They are looking at India as the next destination. So number one is a lot of these companies coming up with a manufacturing base. A lot of US companies have actually started doing that as well. Then the second trend, which is a major trend, which I see, is that a lot of Asian economies, they are actually diversifying, where India is also putting a focus on. What do I mean by diversification? There's a shift of energy. Right? If EV is coming in, oil will go down. If oil will go down, Middle East will go down. So what do they have to do? They're focusing on real estate, they're focusing on retail, right? And they're focusing on sectors like Didi's mobility, but they are putting all guns out with partnering from India and taking their entire scope, which maybe we can cover in the next part of Asia as well. And let me also give you an example. J&K is getting the biggest mall of India. Can you imagine that? Not J&K, in fact, specifically Srinagar, is by coming from the MR group, right? So they are coming out of their oil thing, which makes me come to trend number 3, which apart from India, China, and this actually impacts one of the geographies, which is called LATAM, right? So if oil is going down, which is the commodity which is coming in? Can anyone name that? EV, lithium, right? And 50% of the world's lithium is actually with LATAM, Latin America, right? So there are 3 countries, Argentina, Chile, and one more, which everybody is trying to build a relation with right now. And what does an EV do? It empowers your lithium cell battery, which is going to run everything from a metro to a high-speed train to all infra to cars to a camera to a mobile phone to a PlayStation 5 and whatnot. Right, and India has jumped into that semiconductor wave as well now with the Vedanta tie-up. You'll see a lot of costs also going down, affordability going on, smartphone penetration going by almost doubling by 2026 by the number which I have close to 900 billion. Right, so that's one of the trends. Then I'm just trying to cover a lot of all the geographies how they are suffering in. Then Africa is a very big chapter. And a friend from FMCG is there, he would know that a lot of companies which are having a global tie-up with Indian companies, with companies based out in Singapore to penetrate into the African masses. Number 2, so I'll give you an example, which is the Kellogg Tolaram group, right? They have a brand by the name of Chin Chin Noodle. They've tried it with Nestle and whatnot. Second is fintech sector is going very deep, right? Internet sector, right? They are simplifying things for the African geography. So Africa is actually the next big thing. Spoken about LATAM. Now, another trend, which is my trend number 5, is actually, let's go left to the US. You see a lot of US decisions. US used to be what? The big gunda, the superpower. Still it says India that aap oil nahi le sakte. We touched upon oil from Chabar, Iran port. US is driving underbidden what was earlier under Trump, make America great. It's more made in America stuff. So they are more focusing and they're having a lot of difficulty with it, right? And that's perhaps also one of the reasons why the US economy is actually one of the most hit right now in light of recession. So made in America, bought in America, consumed in America, and whatnot. This is their key focus, right? And then if I shift focus, you've talked about the war, the way Russia is almost on the verge of a civil war, as far as I see. It's being driven by one person, which people over there are saying is more of a person-based decision rather than a country's decision. And I'll tell you what, when Putin had asked all the people to join the army for war, and he wanted to continue on with the war of Ukraine, there were officials who were going on and picking up every boys from home. You could technically not fly. You could not book a flight ticket in Russia if you are aged 18 to 30. And the only way you could escape was if you had an ailment or hand was broken or leg was broken. So the most searched item in Russia at that point of time was how to fracture my leg, how to fracture my arm. So this is a crisis which, if you take on videos, all the malls are empty, all the consumer goods, Apple is out, Microsoft's about to be out. There is a great deficiency of even consumer goods over there. Yeah. And then UK, I think, is a chapter which we look forward to under Rishi Sunak, but it went under whatnot. It went from a bond crisis to currency crisis to an energy crisis, and all culminating into one. And it was a very, very, very big one. Right. So perhaps, I'm very open to discuss on all the geographies. I've touched upon a lot of sectors, but yeah, you can simply let us know where to go from here. And with that, I would like to move to the next question, which is Asia becoming the new economic powerhouse? And perhaps now we can start from Mr. Kapoor.
Okay. Thank you. So we all heard of G7, group of 7, right? So there is a new E7, emerging 7 economy group. So constituting Brazil, India, Russia, China, Mexico, Indonesia, Turkey, right? So all these countries are going to take on the G7 is going to E7 is going to overtake G7 in terms of economy. I think in the next few years, right? So somewhere I had written down, I don't seem to get it. The world economy now is $100 trillion. By 2035, it will be 200 trillion. We know that there has been a regular drift in the center of drift in the world's economic center from Europe. Earlier in the pre-colonization era, it was Asia. So during the age of the exploration, it shifted to Europe. After the World War, it shifted to North America. I'm talking about the economic center. And now it's shifting back to Asia. So is Asia becoming the new economic powerhouse? I would rephrase it to, is Asia regaining its economic powerhouse position? Yes, definitely, right? So all this, if you remember history, we were talking about geopolitics. Geopolitics has a lot of big role to play in this. The Ottoman Empire near Turkey, they blocked the land route to Asia from Europe. That resulted in innovation. In Europe, the age of exploration started. They wanted to identify a sea route to India. They landed up all across the world, including India, right? Why did they want to do it? You try to seek out things that you like, that you hold, that hold value to you, which are not easily available to you. In India, Asia, most the resources were available, everything was available. Asia was self-contained. I'm not saying whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm talking about then. Asia was self-contained. Europe was not. That resulted in them coming to India and not just India, everywhere, and colonizing the world. Europe became the economic powerhouse. And we know the story after World War. North America has become the economic center of the world. All our figures and stats are in dollars. So now, definitely, these countries, the emerging 7 countries, they are working towards a mechanism where the strength of the dollar they want to reduce it, get to a system where we have a alternate currency exchange mechanism where you don't have to rely on the dollar. You know why it's important? Ukraine war has taught us that US can, at the click of a button, freeze all your foreign exchange reserves because all of them are in dollars. US did that with Russia.
With Russia, $700 billion.
Right. So definitely Asia will regain the position of the economic powerhouse. China is expected to surpass US by 2030. China's GDP. The figures are around 37 trillion for China, 35 trillion for US. India by 2031 is expected to be $7.5 trillion economy, right? And third largest GDP by 2035, 10 trillion, and probably overtake US by 2040s, in somewhere in the 2040s. Now, if the part 1 comes true, that may be faster. Part 1 meaning the global recession, where I think of it as Western recession. So definitely, because the main engines of economic growth, are demographic dividend, which Asia has, manufacturing sector China has, and India is definitely coming up. The Prime Minister has announced a performance-linked, production-linked incentive scheme, for enhancing the manufacturing sector. Our exports will definitely pick up, and internalization is one thing, where internalization means that when all your departments within the country, all your government departments within the country are better coordinated. So yes, the government of India is taking up adequate measures. We'll talk about it later if we have time. But the 4th industrial revolution is going to start from China, India. It's already actually started, but actually India and China will be the focal points of the 4th industrial revolution, which is use of robotics, automation, data exchange, Internet of Things, cloud computing, smart factories, right? They have already reached, the Western economies have already reached their potential and are on the decline. So the answer is a definite yes.
Yes, yeah. My like for this one, how many? Thank you. So, over to you. Yes.
So after so many, data metrics which is thrown to you, I'll give you some very basics that why I go with Rahul and Satyam, that yes, Asia is going to play a very strong role, no doubt about it. There are 2 aspects of life, of this economy. How many of you have got a chance to visit US? 1 or 2, or okay, fine. When you see the number, US is a 30 trillion economy, India is a 3 trillion economy, will be 7 trillion economy, China is X number of economy. But how many of you on ground level agree that out of the entire world, how many people wants to go and settle in China? None? Zero?
China nahi.
How many people want to take immigration to China and settle there? None? It's a joke, right? How many people wants to go and settle in US? Everybody.
US.
The best country, best cities, the world best, loveliest cities, people they live, they also want to go and settle in US. Can you ask a person living in Paris? He's also aspiring to go and settle in US, because US is still a land of opportunities. There are multiple area. When you go land in New York, and when I see these number, I laugh on myself. I was just 10 days back in New York City. The roads are booming. The hotel cost pre-pandemic on Times Square, which was $150 per night,
Would have quadrupled or something.
$400. I booked on booking.com. Numbers are different.
Yeah. Same for the flights also. Yeah. So everything's booming.
I hope nobody is recording as Rahul said. These are my personal views.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay. Numbers are different. Don't go by numbers. Don't gloom your mood by numbers. I was talking to Satyam, what is there in for you? I'll come to that point. Just closing on this remark that, okay, US is still a consumer market. The per capita consumption in US is far more than per capita consumption of any part of the world.
Absolutely.
Number of consumers are more in India or in Asia, but per capita consumption. In an average Indian house, you will see one bottle of Coke or Pepsi or any cold drink. Whereas if you compare it with per capita consumption in US, it's 5 times there. So the market consumer per capita of US will remain as high as it is. The lifestyle nobody can match, even if they want to. I'm telling you the hard fact truths, okay? Which will, how it is going to impact you, will come to that point. Whereas Asia will be in demand because Asia is going to help Western world in services. Services part will be with Asia, whereas Asian Filipinos, the Asian people in different part of services, right from nursing to robotics.
Yeah.
When it comes to nursing, people go to Filipinos. They prefer Filipinos as their house services or their old age home services or their other part of the. When it comes to the lower end part of the supply chain, from vegetable market to fish market to the other part of the human means consumer part, they pick up from some different part of Asia. When it comes to intellectual services, there is no replacement for India. How many people in this room agree to this?
Oh, yeah.
Replacement for Western world when it comes to services in India. Either it is medical services or it is high-end nursing services, the pharma services, the pharmaceutical, the B pharma areas, the IT part, the robotics part, the services part. India has another 30 years in that. That can change the landscape of India, apart from generic production of the industrial part. I'm not touching on India is picking up in an industrial part. China is far ahead when it comes to industrial production. India is picking up, will go, as we say. But in services pieces, there is one weak area where we are. And that's the area of opportunity. I'm again repeating, there is one fundamentally weak area for India when it comes to services part. You must have experienced couple of days back, WhatsApp was out for half an hour, 1 hour. There is a silent debate. Was it intentional just to check how many people are dependent on this, or was it a natural flaw of error?
I thought it was
all the TV channels, all the Twitter, everybody was talking only one thing. This WhatsApp is down, as if the entire globe is almost kind of paralyzed. Today, India is heavily dependent on two things. One is Google, other is Meta.
Absolutely.
The day we are able to get a replacement for this, believe me, take my words, this I'm talking not from data, from experience, India will completely reshape the way China has their own Google system. They don't depend on the say Google. We are our entire, right from a kid from nursery to all set of parameters, all set of ages depends on Google today. That's a worrisome area. Otherwise, yes, in services part, apart from the growing industry pieces, India is, will be, and will always be, or Asia, out of Asia, India will always be on top of everything.
I think
With
that
this, I
calls
take
for
a
a
pause
clap,
and
man.
continue.
Pretty optimistic. Very, very, very well put. And a couple of things I'm able to relate that some of the best doctors in the US, they are actually Indians. You,
I lived for 6 to 7 of my prime age. Still, I'm in prime age, but one of the prime age. I was in Canada. If you talk to the Canadian local citizens in a hospital, if they go to if there are 3 set of doctors for one particular area, let's say pediatrics or gynae or orthopedics, they will prefer to go to an Indian. The trust level is so high. Then an Arabic doctor, and lastly, some other, I don't want to name. So that is the trust level. Indian doctors
have to be.
even IT. I have a client, or I had a client. That project was outsourced to different countries. So whenever it comes to a person from Indian origin, they are diehard fan of Indians. On 2.1, the humbleness. Second, the intellectual knowledge. These two things are not so common in any part of the world. Any part of the world. This I'm speaking after exposure and hardcore traveling to 43 different countries. Humbleness and intellectual, both element you won't find in any other nationality other than Indians, or in service industry, Filipinos for that matter.
I think
Or Thais or the other people.
service industries wise, like as TCS is leading the revenue for Tata Group, we are already a champion. I also can relate to one example. I was watching a beautiful movie, Rocketry, where I got to know that we had pioneered space exploration techniques before everybody. It was there in India, but due to some petty politics, that actually got subsided. But that speaks of Indian intellectual capacity at a global level in
No doubt about
extreme
it.
things.
No doubt about it.
So-
That's why today, when it comes to the real intellectual services, there is
We are the
no,
champions.
India is not second to anybody.
Wow. Thank you. Thanks so
Agree.
much, sir, for taking us through. And Mr. Pratik, what are your views from an Indian perspective? And guys, what we're going to do, just one pause here. For the third question, in the paucity of time, I think I'd request most of the panel members to cover it with the discussion. And third, we can directly move to, from your upgrade or skilling perspective, how, how this global dynamics can interplay. Yes, over to you.
So I think we have talked a lot about India.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
So I'll talk a little bit more about the other countries which are there in Asia. How I see Asia, because a lot of countries are there, and each country is different from a cultural language standpoint also. So first is China. It's a close country. We know very less about it. Even people in US know, like as we know about US or European countries. So there is a very less knowledge on how to do business. Maybe culturally, or some people in India can talk in Mandarin also. But from a business standpoint, there are hardly very few Indian companies who have been able to set up a kind of a base in China. Even at a manufacturing level, export level, there are a lot of challenges. So one is China, second India. Then we have the Southeast Asia region, which includes countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, and Singapore is like a capital of
An island, rich island, I should say.
it's like the capital of the SIA region, and a very small island, but it's like it's one of the most developed in overall the Asia region. Then we have then the other way is to look at Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. I would consider them as developed. There is a these countries are facing very different problems. So uh, in China and India, like we still have a young workforce. Every year, like the people, though China will go down the young workforce in the coming years because of their policies, but still, like there is a it's these are labor intensive regions. Japan, Korea, and Taiwan are the countries which are getting old from a population standpoint. So these are countries which have a very different problem as compared to uh, the problems which the region face. So in four buckets: China, India or South Asia. You can combine Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. We are all British colonies, so we speak English. So these are the four buckets in which you can see Asia as a whole. Um, and apart from China and India, Southeast Asia region is another region which we can look at. Suyash was talking about Vietnam, and and Vietnam has so there is a very good stat about Vietnam which I like to share. So Vietnam has exceeded even China and India in terms of furniture market. So they're producing more furnitures, all those home supply as compared to India and China. So there is a very different approach which Vietnam is taking. Philippines, on the other hand, is the BPO capital of the world. Philippines has the highest number of BPO. Even they have surpassed India also. A lot of US outsourcing is happening from Philippines. Malaysia and Indonesia are also emerging as manufacturing hubs. They are also rich in commodities. So I think if you are reading about Asia, you can get deeper into a regional kind of a view. And China, I would like to share a little bit about the kind of information I have got. Now, China is very hard to compete because we were talking about India, and India is improving definitely. But let's say maybe we'll surpass US in next 15 years. But what will be our strategy for China if we have to be one of the largest economies in the world? So in India, we have every year we have 15 lakh engineers. In US, it's only 2.5 lakh. So though US is the tech heaven, but still they produce around 15% of engineers than India. The number of engineers which graduates in China is 50 lakhs. So imagine 15 lakh in India and 50 lakh in.
So I think India number will be around 20-25 lakh because the people who take it, but yeah, still half, one third or half of China.
One third of China in terms of
China speaks here, yes, volumes.
In terms of number of engineers. In terms of work-life balance, I think a lot of people don't want to go to China. So I've heard that it's a 996. So I was also curious, what is 996 number? So they actually work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. While on the other hand, if you will see a European culture, the culture is working 7 hours for, and now they're saying 4 days a week. So 4 days is more productive for them. So there is a
heart attack हो जाएगा जो startups से हम लोग काम करेंगे. So by the way, guys, I work for 2 startups and we have a 9 to 5 strict culture, 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. Yeah, so that's a fun. So, but yeah, go ahead. I mean, very, very interesting point which you picked up on work cultures.
Yeah. So the way China is working, the way because of their decision making, that's a communist country, so decisions just flow in a very well structured way. Whereas in a democracy, it takes a lot of time to get implemented. So China, I think there are a lot of lessons to take from China also. And there's a lot of competition that we are going to see from the China market. And I think India and China are also similar, like though we don't speak their language, but people are actually hungry. Like I have seen the hunger that people want to work, people want to grow in their life.
Very hardworking, very hardworking.
I think that is one common characteristic which is there. But overall, I think um, one way to see a country is to just understand from the business perspective. Like there are so many startups. This is the GDP. That's the macro level. Other way to see is from a people standpoint. Like how cultures are evolving, how people are thinking. I think one needs to get deeper from the people perspective also to get a bottoms to up approach on the
Absolutely.
on that side.
I think very beautifully summed up, Prateek. And to add a few countries, which I think you would say, is like pick up something like a South Korea, right? And I worked for a company, Ola, which was very aggressive in working, right? They're very demanding and they're very open about it. So one of the greatest fits were the few Koreans over there, and we could see that they come to the office at 8:30 a.m. and stay till what 9:10, right? So they're extremely sharp with specifically with respect to an auto or a semiconductor sector. Then there are places like Taiwan, which is actually the semiconductor hub, and all eyes of China are on Taiwan, for that matter. Hong Kong, which is the financial hub, it ranks way up in GDP per capita, maybe above Singapore. Singapore, by the way, as the biggest, or I should say, what the passport with the maximum value, right? It guarantees you to 191 odd countries. So yeah, we've got very different mix, but very hardworking breed here in Southeast, is what I would say. Even for Japan, for that matter, one trait of Japan is that the kids, right in the childhood, morality, ethics, itna bhar diya jata hai unke mind mein that they take it to the nth level, right? They're very sincere about their country, and that's why a very small island has actually become a $5 trillion economy. And they're very innovative and very hardworking as well. So I think very nicely put up. And yeah, with that, what are your views, Suyash, on this one?
Actually, it's good that I'll try to put a contrarian opinion on this one, because again, I belong to the Ruchir Sharma school of thought that India continues to disappoint both its optimists and pessimists alike. Now, this question is Asia becoming the new economic powerhouse. I think I first started reading Economic Times way back in 99. And in some ways or the other, I've been hearing this question since then, in some form or the other. Business Today, you pick up any business magazine. While I was preparing for business school, I've been part of so many FICCI forums. Again, the same question keeps coming. It's been going on since the last 3 decades. Yes, we've grown. Yes, there are sunshine sectors where Asia is doing phenomenally well. But again, let me temper the expectations a little bit. Again, because again, when I have to look into the future, I tend to look at the past also. So, and in the spirit of making this interactive, let me just quickly ask you all, what is your favorite brand per se? Brand. What are the first few names that prop to your mind when I say your favorite brand? Quickly. You don't need to raise hands, just you can start mouthing them. Okay.
Which one?
Apple.
Okay.
Nike. Okay. Okay. Google. Something in F&B industry. I come from FMCG, so please help me. ITC. Okay. PNG, HUL. Sorry? Brands. Consumer brands. Red Bull, Pepsi, Coke, something like that. Now do the same exercise outside India also. Invariably, the same names will come up. Now, somebody, I think earlier in their expectations said that India should become a producing market. The problem with the producing market is that you're always looking at the seller. With all the optimism surrounding Asia, the fact of the matter is that if tomorrow US stops consuming, these countries, Asian countries, which are not exactly in recession right now, they will go in recession, big time. If you recall the first 2 months of COVID pandemic, problems in India, China happened not because we were not able to produce. Yeah, we were not able to produce. But the fact was that US actually was not picking up goods. The consumption dropped. If tomorrow US consumers stop purchasing vehicles, if they stop replacing their clothes, take it from me in writing, the entire textile industry in India, Bangladesh, which apparently is the bright spot, will collapse overnight. So, amidst all the euphoria that we have about Asia becoming the next big superpower, we also need to look at the macroeconomic indicators, which I think Mr. Satish picked up perfectly well. We don't have actually brands. The first thing that an Indian also thinks about in terms of brand is actually Pepsi, Coke, Kellogg's. You don't actually recall Indian names that well. You picked up ITC, but you didn't pick up a brand. You didn't realize there is Sunfeast, there is Ashirwad. And even if you do realize, somebody in Canada and US for sure will not call on those names. Somebody talked about agri exports earlier. The largest country with the highest agri exports is actually Netherlands. It's roughly the size of Haryana, and it does 2.5 times of the exports of the whole of India. So for me, actually, this question is more like a pompous question. It almost reminds me of my Bangladeshi friend, who every time he chats with me, he says, India won because cheating हो गया था. मैंने कहा हाँ, अगर cheating नहीं होता तो तुम तो World Cup जीतने वाले थे, although you don't have a single silverware to show. But apparently, अगर इंडिया से जीत जाते तो ये वर्ल्ड कप जीत होता. This is very much in that territory. That India, Asia is becoming the next economic superpower house. We have the potential, but there is still a long way to go. China plus one, it's not a recent phenomena, by the way. I've been in international trade for 14 years. I've been hearing this term China plus one since that time. Nobody loves dealing with Chinese. Trust me. It's a pain in the ass. It's as simple as that. But the dependence is so high, the ecosystem is so evolved that you just can't escape China. Same thing is with Taiwan. Semiconductor industries, you just can't escape Taiwan. India doesn't have that kind of an ecosystem as yet. We are still in that socialist mindset that small is big. And just
I think very,
just
very
one last,
interestingly put, and very, I would say that even if people have questions, please, yeah, go ahead.
just one last point I'll make. Again, reminds me of one of the conversations which I was having a few months back in UK. A fellow Indian, he was beating his chest saying that we produce the best tea in the world, Darjeeling tea. I mean, great, good for you. But actually, the tea growers in Darjeeling, they are dying. They don't even make basic daily wages. Their daily wages, I think, is about 120 rupees. You can actually estimate how much would you be able to do with that 120 rupees. However, the same Darjeeling tea, once it gets packed under a Clippers brand, gets sold for something like 8-9 pounds for 200 grams. So that's the part of the value chain which we are missing. The day India starts making the next Meta, Google, or India starts becoming the next Clippers or Kellogg's of the world, and it starts selling in, well, international aisles of Walmarts, the Loblaws of the world, that is the day you can come and say that Asia has genuinely done well. The only countries who've done well from Asia happen to be Japan and Korea. And they've done well because they've climbed up the value chain. Samsungs of the world, the Hondas of the world. You create brands. You guys are students of international business. I'm sure you would have some sort of inclination towards marketing. Think from that perspective. Unless you are the brand owner, you virtually make no money. No money, you'll continue to be talking about this question, trust me, even 30 years down the line.
Nice, nice. Any, I think the house is open. I would say that I'm so happy that somebody has got a diversity of thinking and could challenge the fact over here. And, I would like to go and I would say that while complete in respect of you, but the way you have talked about a couple of sectors, and, we have gentlemen from all aspects here. We have Mr. Kapoor, who's been in the Navy for like 2 decades, is what you informed me. Sectors like defense, as per my understanding, we have taken a huge leap. Never were Indian missiles bought by people outside India. This was the first time S. Jaishankar went to LATAM, did a deal of the BrahMos missile. Forget LATAM now, America and Europe are also going to come in this. And why I'm telling you this, because the shares of HAL, they have boomed after that. Right? This is one. But I think I meant to do specific with the sector, even with the geopolitics or the viewpoint which India has completely changed. We used to be extremely docile in our approach, but we are no more now. We are taking a stand to the extent that the few people have come ahead and said that Indian foreign policy is arrogant. I don't believe that. right? And there was S. Jaishankar sitting in the US, and with all due respect, countries like US who claim to be a superpower, and at the time of flood, where one third of the Pakistani population is gone almost, right? Pakistan, by the way, is on the edge of a civil war. They are funding $450 million worth of F-16. India went on, challenged for the first time. Nobody did it. And when a reporter asked S. Jaishankar that why you're being on the edge, he says, no, I'm not being on the edge. I am on my ground. Just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I'm on the edge, right? Now, you spoke about the sectors of semiconductor, and I have a different view. So, I would also say semiconductor, we are the next big leap. Why Taiwan, which is so big, and people like Samsung are coming out of Chinese and those perspective, has invested $22 billion to set up a plant in the US. India is almost putting up $25 billion, and this is being done by the Vedanta group itself, which will cost you laptops, premium laptops, which cost 70, 80K, and going to go to 20, 30K. You'll see a slash in all those prices. Is my perspective. So I think the point which I've said, maybe from a 99 to a 2010 perspective existed, but I believe that we are going and challenging each and everything. And okay, there are internal debacles with everyone. It happened with Enron, with a lot of companies. But the fact of the matter is, there is an Indian company which has gone ahead and sponsored a FIFA football. The revolutions which are happening in fintech space. Okay, guys, by the way, do you know which country leads the digital transaction in the world? Yeah. This mindset was not 5 years back. And a very famous, in fact, the finance minister himself said, where will you get the machine to a vendor, right? Where will you get the POS where she will have the electricity? Right now, UPI has done what? 55 billion transactions last year. They have done 40 billion transactions as I speak to you. And the plan is in the next 2-3 years, there are going to be 1 billion transactions per day. Now that calls for a clap. Right? This is the power of India. And I'm not saying this is not just India. First, it was taken by countries which are Bangladesh, Nepal, small countries. Then it came UAE, then came bigger countries, more developed countries like Singapore. Now it's gone into France. Russia is calling for it. It's gone in the UK. Just imagine. Right? A decade back, I would not say Indian origin people or Indian talent being recognized to that extent. That they are leading the world in all and every sphere. And as I speak to you, I work for companies, which are planning to change the globe. And they've sold 1 lakh EV scooters right now. There are multiple plans which they have. So I am of the view that, perhaps your opinion maybe dates a little back, but yeah, it's changing very rapidly. And before I give it to you, I would like to hear from Mr. Kapoor on the defense part in detail.
So no, I absolutely, Suyash, what he says, I am in agreement with him. So, and one of the Indian brands that I like is Royal Enfield. And I'm off to a trip to Sariska tomorrow in my Thunderbird 500. Okay. So, yeah. So, but we need to now get back to history, Ottoman Empire and the age of colonization, and we need to decolonize our mind. So it's 200 years of colonization and all won't go off like this. Europe and America have been able to build big companies, big brands because of their dominance then. And somewhere this power shift has to start. And yeah, it is starting already. Okay. So, but I am in agreement. Till the time Indian companies get into manufacturing and get up the value chain, I mean, build brands, okay, and sell them, we will not be there. And I recollect a few articles by our previous governor of RBI, Mr. Raghuram Rajan, on saying why India should not follow the manufacturing path. He's been trying to push for that. I sort of disagree with him there. Unless you take on manufacturing, you will not be able to go up the value chain, and you will give opportunities to others to weaponize the supply chain. So now I come to weaponization, defense. I was in the Indian Navy for 20 years. I left the Indian Navy and joined the corporate sector 5.5 years ago. So during my 20 years of being in the Indian Navy, I have seen the shift from acquiring ships from outside to starting our own shipbuilding initiatives and now we slowly grown wherein we can independently, produce ships, submarines, and most of the equipment that goes on board also we are able to buy it ourselves. Yes, there are a few problems like gas turbine, the blades, specific equipment that we don't have the expertise to manufacture. But again, those countries have had a advantage. They were the manufacturing hub of the world during the industrial revolution. Actually started from there, and the world wars helped them enhance their manufacturing sector. So the wars actually create a disruption wherein it also promotes economic growth in a way. Innovation, new technologies come in. So that's just my view.
Sums up beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think pretty sums up beautiful. Yeah. I think Suyesh, you had a point there.
Yeah. So again, numbers guy, and I totally second that part, that we are doing well in sectors and there has been a start. But let's also acknowledge the fact that we are pretty much in the infancy stage. China, to become a manufacturing superpower house, it took them almost 2.5 decades of hard work. Our work has just started. So to expect that something big is going to happen in the next couple of years, that's utopian thought process. The other part, which I'd like your focus, I'd like to draw your focus is, what are the India's top 5, 10 export items? Petroleum, precious items, chemicals, bovine meat, and that kind of stuff. There's now all these commodities, they're all susceptible to price movements. Whichever countries you are exporting to right now, the day they find a cheaper supplier, you are out. But that doesn't happen with a company like Apple, Boeing. So a lot of people keep talking about how US's exports have dipped, their influence has gone down. No, they haven't gone down. India keeps exporting agri-commodities, pretty much the entire basket, and they still make $30-35 billion. US will just walk in to Saudi Arabia, India, seal a deal for the F-16 fighters, and they are done. They're done for the day. The kind of work that they are doing is what we should be aspiring to do. I'm sure many of you would be having housemaids at home. She also works hard, but she doesn't make even a fraction of the money that probably you guys will make the moment you graduate. Going back to the Bangladesh example, Bangladesh defeating India is big for them, but India not even winning the World Cup is bad for us. Same situation is with US and India. US not hitting up to the mark is a disappointment. India landing a couple of missile deals, which is a good start, and it's big news for us. So we need to start thinking big, actually. These small Pyrrhic victories won't last us long, actually. We need to start thinking about how to create an ecosystem for exports. How can we be that large? I have gone about selling products. And while our service professionals, as Mr. Satish pointed out, they command a lot of respect, Indian sales guys don't command any respect, by the way. The moment I actually go about selling Indian tea, Indian wheat, we don't even get any respect, because most of our commodities don't even hit on the regulatory part, actually. There is demand for wheat, there is demand for tea, there is demand for coffee. Nobody wants to buy it from India. There is a reason. We don't even qualify on the regulatory requirements. The amount of pesticides that we drink every day in Indian tea, Japan won't even allow it to enter their country. So that's a problem. Now we can beat our chest and say that, hey, we are doing fantastically well because we've grown. I think somebody quoted a number that our wheat exports have grown from $50 million to $1 billion. Nothing to do with India, actually. Indian government used to ban wheat exports. I used to work for ITC. Ashirwad Atta exports used to fluctuate. We used to look at the government whether we are allowed to export or not. And besides that, Indian wheat in many countries actually is not even allowed to be imported because it contains high level of pesticides, fungus, and God knows what all. So you have to start creating that ecosystem here. Your land holdings are so small that you just can't deal with economies of scale. What are you going to offer to the global markets if your product is pricey and it's not even compliant? Remember my example about Netherlands, small country, their yield for every agri commodities is 8 to 12 times of India. Small area, but they have a higher yield. And then we actually have problems like farm protests, everything. The one logical policy change which was about to happen in India was got scuttled. And people are happy about that. And then we say that India is becoming the next powerhouse.
Good. Nice thoughts. And I think a lot of anybody would have any question, because यार मेरे points सारे खत्म हो गए फिर से. But I would like to put a few things again. I think, yeah, definitely a lot of learning which I can actually take, that we need to be very regulated. And it's actually an irony that our wheat contains pesticide, but we are the second largest pizza consumer of the world for Domino's. Pizza market in the US is $45 billion. In India, it's $1 billion, but we're still the second biggest market, right? So for the cold drinks also, right? So while regulatory wise, we definitely need to catch up over there, consumption wise, we are still aping. And a lot of people, when you talked about brands, and since I come from an FMCG background, I worked for companies like Kellogg, Buffetti, Nivea Skincare, you all talked about cool brands, which you like to associate yourself with, Red Bull. You will not say, how many people from outside Delhi or tier 2 towns here? Perhaps a lot of us, and even I had, back in my home, a newspaper by the name of Aaj, Dainik Bhaskar. These are also brands. They have grown and shaped India. How many of you don't have a Dabur Chyawanprash if you are from a UP or a Bihar, right? So that these are also brands you associate with, but you will mention all the cool brands over here. Still, I taking his point, India is still only manufacturing close to 5 to 6% of the Ayurvedic products of the world. India has given the world yoga, and that was my point, more than counter to his point. So actually, I wanted to deep dive a bit on the Indian history. And as Mr. Kapoor had very rightly said, that becoming should be replaced by restoring. Okay, before the Britishers, do you know what was our contribution to the global GDP? Right now, it is how much? 100 trillion economy. We are what? 3.5 trillion, 3.2 trillion type, 3%. You know how much it was during Bahadur Shah Zafar 2 times, whose cook still runs a restaurant by the name of Kareem's in Chandni Chowk. It was close to 40%. And what was it basically based on? We were the textile hub of the world, right? But mistake number one we did after independence, we didn't recognize all this. What happened with China? China's growth story, I'm forgetting the name of the gentleman, he actually kicked it off in 78. And S. Shankar actually went to the US and mentioned 3 mistakes which India did. Number 1 definitely was partition. Number 2 was we were very late with this federal regulation which happened till 91. And the third part was we were celebrating a rural thing. We never thought of smart cities or urbanization. And this is a gift to the nation which we got. Right? And no political inferences here, but that's sadly the truth of the story. From
export Ayurvedic products from India, regulatory compliance.
Yeah, but
Ayurvedic products are full of heavy metals.
Yeah. So I know that. One sec. So you're talking about Europe, but there are bigger markets waiting in Africa. There are bigger markets waiting in something like a Jeddah or a Middle East, right? Where Dabur is actually becoming a 15,000 crore company. I mean, you yourself were with Imami, which I will not say they are Ayurvedic products or not.
Again, Dabur does a lot of production in UAE itself.
In UAE itself, yeah. So
they don't do it in India.
Yeah. So they don't do it in India, but that's an Indian brand which is going global. Dabur comes as an Indian brand. You get the royalty in India, yes or no? You do. A lot of you might not see it because it's yaar wo mere dadaji wala brand hai, wo chhat wala add karta hai. But that's the truth of the story, that our origins have been washed away by the Machiavellian education. And this is why I'm telling you, because I've done some very hardcore research, and you should go to YouTube and hear to podcast from a gentleman called as Abhijit Chavda. And he will date you back to the Harappan civilization. How many Ivy Leagues are there in India? You all are B schoolers. 0. Harappa, when the DNAs were found out of people, they were Japanese, they were Korean, they were people from all DNAs. You know why? Because it was a global B school. Global school, rather. We had the best universities, Takshila, which was burned down. Nalanda, anybody from Bihar here? My origins are from Bihar. I've been to Rajgir. I cried for 2 hours when I saw and heard that the best and the best of the scriptures which were kept. And we actually led the world, medicine, aerospace, come what not. Right? So that's the heritage of India. And what we have failed to understand that over a period of time, it's just not the Britishers who took it away, it's a lot of other people who also took it away. Right? So that's something which needs to be restored. And I truly believe the fact that my friend is absolutely right. We need to take these learnings. Like, let's say if there is a regulatory thing, we need to work harder and come back. We don't leave it over there. We keep pushing till we become the champion. I believe that the mindset has started. Had it not, 40% of the digital transaction globally, still I feel would be this. But yeah, that's pointers from my side. Yeah. Yes, I'm putting up to the next query and the questions, which is majorly, what. One last question before everybody wants to take a very quick one. I'll ask one or two people here. Sir, आप बताइए education perspective से, there's a lot of students sitting here. What to gain from here and how to shape their career?
Very, very good. I think one of the question which I noted was somewhere from the middle row, how the students are going to be, how the students are going to affect of this. I think a lot of very good information, knowledge from your perspective. One very important point from a corporate industry and from your future journey ahead in corporate world, maybe most of you will be out in market after 1 year, 23, by 23. So what you are looking for, the industry, you guys are the next generation of Indian talent, from a services point of view to the whole world.
I think feel free to ask questions based on your career.
Correct.
Correct. You shape India outside. You need not place it with the theme.
Correct.
Feel free. And I hope I had a list of all the questions. I had a check. I believe the questions which you had for the discussion is what we have taken on.
So yeah, India reshaping is good, but try to think that how we can reshape ourselves.
I think that's a sensitive topic from
Okay, no sensitive, that is fine. Okay, there is no, these are the opinion only.
Yeah.
Moonlighting is a recently picked up word, but it was there for quite long, It was there for quite long. Moonlighting can be referenced in respect of different area. I'll give you a small example. Let's say you are working in an IT industry. Your wife is a dentist, right? After office hour, you go and help her in her clinic. Everybody was doing that. Will that be termed as moonlighting because you are serving after 6 o'clock, or you are helping your wife, or your wife is in IT, you are a doctor and she's helping you out? Now, in new references, these are also being quoted under the moonlighting pieces. Your dad is in a business. You are working in a company. You are helping him during the odd hours. So the lot of debate is happening that, okay, you are contractually agreed with your company to work from 9 to 5 for a particular area of your specialization. Afterwards, what you are doing is none of the company's business. That's why that is a debate, right? So the point here is lot of points are coming, and one of the most important point is, as long as my extra work is not in conflict with my current job role, should not be treated as a moonlighting work. Or as long as my intellectual knowledge which I'm getting from my company is not being used and I'm remonetizing it. I'm not monetizing my company knowledge or IP to other work, or it is not conflicting. The rest all is fine. I gave you two examples. I'm helping my dad's job, business, or my brother or my wife or something else, or I'm taking extra tuitions. I work in a company. I am responsible for, let's say, for Japanese market. I picked up Japanese language, and in evening I'm taking some Japanese lectures. So it's the area what need to be thought, and a lot of debates are happening. Yes, one point, yes, if I am doing a coding on one area for my company, and if competition picks me up to do a coding for similar area for his group, that is unethical. So there is a blur, very small, very thin line, or a very blur line, that how do you agree, or how do you convince your conscience that what I am doing, what I am earning as a main bread, to a side job. Make sense?
Greetings to the panel. Jai Shankar from BDA Batch. So my question is regarding one of the topics that you covered at the end of the discussion. So given the unfulfilled potential that India has and the various global demands that you also pointed out, for example, Africa, what would be your advice to entrepreneurs and startups to fulfill this demand and fulfill the potential that India has, and the kind of questions that keep arising regarding India in being a powerhouse?
From a startup angle, you're looking
Startup entrepreneurs, yes.
Okay, I'll take that. See, first and foremost, if I look at the startups which have actually gone global, a couple of them would be, and just keep aside the fact that they have been successful, non-successful, but they've at least tried going global. Number one was Oyo. Second, I would say to a large extent, it was Byju's, right? Third number which comes to my mind is perhaps an Ola, which launched in ANZ or a UK markets, right? From a startup lens, mostly. If there are other startups you guys can think of, perhaps you can speak out. Huh? Flipkart majorly, as far my understanding goes in, if somebody can add to it, majorly operates in India. There are no big countries like Europe or in Africa which it operates in, though they have their offices in Singapore, which is more of an accounting office, not your business operation office. Yeah. So, yes. Global company, yeah. Yes. And being funded by a global company or being recognized or merged with a global company versus doing operations is, that can't be called global. From that lens, if I look at all the startups that are getting funded from countries of America, we can call them global, but they aren't. Anyways, coming directly to your question, and it's a very beautiful one, that yes, there are very big problems which are waiting to be unlocked from an entrepreneur. For example, in Africa, right? And some of them are the basic human needs: food, clothes, water, sanitation, mobility, whatnot. Right? For even example, what a financial, which is a very, very regulated and heavily regulated sector, a country's development is actually identified by the presence of financial products in the hands of its citizens, right? And our country has been, in terms of lending, has been so abused. And I would quote something from a movie. How many of you have seen Welcome to Sajjanpur? Nobody? Okay. Oh yeah. So there is one scene that guy lends his money to give money to some other person, which is in fact, a girl from his village, and the landlord Jamindar says ki 20% lunga. Right? Today is a day where you go to your app, a credit or a Paytm, you get a 1 lakh of a lending in 2 minutes. Life has not been this simple. Was not this simple for our parents or previous generation. Still not simpler in the places outside. And this is a very, very big unlock. Right? And you should read this book. This is called The Mystery of Money. Right? I'm speaking more from a financial perspective, where a lot of people have the land, but it is not digitized. And that is the next step of the government, where they link your property to Aadhaar, which is still not happening for some other reasons. The moment that happens, your financials will be regulated. Your credit worthiness of India will go to next level. And that is when people have that money or lending capacity, magic will start happening. Right? So I'm just giving you one problem. Education is another big thing, mobility. And I think there are a lot of third world countries waiting. Also, for that matter, even the problems are waiting to be solved even from a developed country lens. Right? For example, Paytm, in tie with SoftBank, launched PayPay in Japan. Now, we all talk about Japan as one of the most developed countries, but the fact is, we have touched almost 40% of the population over there. Right? And even when we talk about a lot of apps and something, I think we have to be very, very careful. While we may recognize that a lot of countries like Meta and Google, they're very doing good, but we have to also look at, are they doing some ethical business, right? For which, because it's very regulated sphere, right? That's one of the things. And let me give you a small example again here. For example, TikTok, what they show in China is very different from what they show in the US. Thankfully, it's banned in India right now. You know about this fact or no? The entire generation, and by the way, it's an amazing product. I could sit on it, watch videos for 3 hours, keep laughing, or pata hi nahi chalta time. This is outstanding product, right? So that's one of the products which, as compared to what they show so they show only morally regulated content, country building content, अच्छी चीजें दिखाते हैं. यहाँ पे an entire generation is thinking that, having fun in life or doing jokes is all life, and then his life goes around. When he spends 2-3 hours, life changes. We have to be very sensitive of the regulative environment here. I hope that answers your question. It's a pretty long one. I can speak for long. Any other person from panelists, perhaps Pratik, aap log hai. So,
Sorry, I'm Kushal Singh from IB batch. I would like to ask, as Sir very well mentioned, that the recession won't be affecting us. But Sir, I'm sorry, but I would like to ask you here that you said it will be affecting the Western countries more, right? But as it was also mentioned, if US stops consuming, what will we do, right? That recession will also affect the Asia becoming the economic powerhouse, right? As Sir mentioned, yes, Sir mentioned that if India is selling products, only then we'll grow, right? We need to think big. If we are starting a startup and no one is buying, what will that startup do? So basically, that recession is going to affect Asia becoming an economic powerhouse in the future very well. So any views by any of the panelists?
Yeah.
Okay, so recession means negative GDP growth. Okay, for 2 quarters, more than 2 quarters. Asia is definitely not going to be in recession. But yes, if by chance the Americas and Europe gets into a recession, yes, it will impact the markets in India also, definitely. But it's always a temporary phenomenon. It's like a wave. Okay, so we are in a, it's like a trough and a crest. So there's always future which is going to be bright. So as an entrepreneur, what you need to see is, number one, you should have a idea which is, new in the market, innovation. You need to define your target consumers already. That should be clear. How will you uh, how will you beat your competition? If you're a new entrant, definitely you have the advantage. Uh, and there are examples wherein even if the idea is not new, but if it is well executed, that also helps. So in the defense sector and the energy power sector, a lot of, in the manufacturing side, a lot of MSMEs are going to come up, right? So uh, in the supply side, the raw material and the supply side of the supply chain, you can think, you need to choose your industry segment, target consumers, uh, and all this generally I've what from my experience, this comes in when people already work in some industry for a few years, then they go into entrepreneurship. These guys might have a different idea. As in the services sector, it is easy to get into entrepreneurship. Like in the IT sector, you make an app, something, revolutionize it. But in the manufacturing sector, better to get into the sector, experience it yourself first, and then think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So according to the stock markets, you were quite interested in all those in that field, right? So you were saying that what will be the impact from the other startups as well?
Yeah.
The Indian market, stock market, it collapses whenever anything happens around in the world.
Thank you. What's your good name? Kushal. I think very, very pertinent and relevant questions. And I would like first go to your first question and just give me 30 seconds over there to answer. First and foremost, India is one of the biggest markets in the world, right? It's 1.3 billion population, middle class rising income. Our dependence on export and import is, so we export close to 18.04% of our GDP and we import close to 18.34%, right? Now, with due respect, whatever we export, please also understand that the countries, for example, a US, which is pushing a made in US kind of a thing, there's a very small contribution. I would say not more than 30-40% will go to the US. There are other countries as well, right? So, जो fight आएगी आपकी, जो effect आएगी recession में, वो पाई है. But you also have to understand others' dependence on that product, right? Which is significant, because geopolitics wise US is pretty grilled with a lot of countries. Russia se trade stop kar diya unhone, right? They are already having an anti-China kind of a sentiment. There was a survey which was done where people were asked in the US, would you buy something made in China? More than 72% said no, right? And Sir is here. He's been leading TCS marketing. He would himself say the kind of intellectual capital which we give to the US, if the US stops it, I don't think they're in a position to even. Do you think that they would be in a position to immediately stop or replace us, the kind of strength which we would have made over there?
See, I think I said very loud and clear that the entire world is interlaced, interconnected with each other. I gave example. Let's say if you see the overall market, there are segments which are dominated by different countries. You know that there are segments which are dominated by different countries. For example, the entire fish vegetable market is dominated by, I'll name, by Moroccans, Algerians, Pakistanis, that market. Huge labor. The entire labor to this segment, entire Europe, US is by this market, okay? The cloth market, the apparels market is heavily by Malaysia, Bangladesh. You laugh when you go to Walmart in US and see a shirt of $10. This is from made in Sri Lanka, made in Bangladesh. Okay. The third market is of equipments, the medical equipments or the PCs or the, the equipment, electronic equipment, heavily from, Asia, some of these countries. Fourth is I'll say the intellectual market. is all India. If you see, there are two countries, if they stop going to universities in US, Canada, Europe, the big infrastructure of universities will be empty. Only two countries, China and India.
Absolutely, bang on.
All the flights. Just now, your students, your peers in your family, your circle, you must be seeing this. College time, all the flights were packed. Ticket which used to come for 40,000, 50,000 bucks, 3 lakhs, right? You all know that. So that market is going to be with India for sure, intellectual services market. Similarly, there are other areas, defense for Russia, for oil for Russia, for wheat. There is a ban from India, but for other countries. So apart from that, the wave, as I said in the beginning, wave will come. It has come in past. It will come in past in future. No need to worry. Hone on your skills. Change your style. Change your skills. Keep learning. Identify what is your SWOT. We do SWOT for so many things in life, but we don't do SWOT of ourselves. When you ask a TV actor or a screen player actor, before going to a delivery of a script or a shoot for an hour or a half an hour shoot, he does that. He practice it for more than 3 hours. So you have to practice. You have to see. You have to do your own SWOT. Where am I fitting in this recession? Don't worry for recession. It will come, as I said in the beginning. Come, stay, go, people will find an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So keep that in mind that, okay, one of the question was, how does it affect the student? The student, it will affect. It is affecting everybody in the chain. All the existing professionals, the mature professionals, or those who are, going out of the corporate world and if they want to do what they want to do in life. So opportunities will be there, boss. You will have to see, you'll have to explore yourself.
And
make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You were asking about the stock market thing. So, मेरा एक question है उससे पहले. How many of you have seen Scam Story? Yeah, amazing series, huh? So, did you notice one thing? Life at that point of time, in terms of investing, and let me know exactly from what lens are you asking the question after I finish the statement, was very difficult. On a Dalal Street jobber, you had to place a bet, wo jata tha, wo order laga, so the penetration was very low, which still continues to be low. Now it's extremely simple. An app like a Zerodha, Angel Broking, IND Money, khada khada aapne kar liya. For analysis, what I believe is the learning, okay, and this is outside stock market, but from an overall learning perspective, the thing which has cracked is YouTube. And you would be very surprised, most of the things are free on YouTube. There are players like Lambda Education who are actually giving everything free, or even for example, a Khan Sir kind of a thing, right? Almost free, right? There are topics like Inflection Points, which is 1997 recorded, one of the best management Howard lectures available for free. So learning wise, even from a stock market perspective or anything, from a sector analysis perspective, is absolutely free and at your doorstep. So the simplicity is one of the threads which I wanted to highlight. Secondly, perhaps you can be more specific about the sector, and we can have the discussion outside. How is a different sector poised? But what I foresee from a market, and I may be wrong here, but my understanding and calculation is the market is going to be, it's going to be stabilizing for the next 1 year. And there are various impacts. It's not just recession. It's 24 elections coming in, different perspectives being built on over there. A lot of projects are semi-finished. We look for their completion as well. Banking industry is going through an entire revolution, right? So we have to see the trends over there as well. And then in the long term, I'm always bullish on it. Why I'm telling you, still less than 5% of the Indian GDP is at equity market. Compared to a country like US is 30%, right? So it's a very, very significant pie. Yeah. Second, from a startup lens, which you asked about, the money pumping in. Till the time Fed keeps on increasing the rate, पहले क्या होता था? सस्ते रेट पे उठाते थे, यहाँ पे इन्वेस्ट करते थे, बीच में इंटरेस्ट कमाते थे. वहां पे जब पैसे की लेंडिंग बढ़ गई, रेट बढ़ गई, Fed रेट बढ़ा रहा है because they have to curb their currency flow and inflation and what not, the entire game has changed. यहाँ से पैसा वापस जाने लगा और वो globally जाने लगा. That's perhaps one of the reasons why the US dollar is skyrocketing. Yeah, so hope that answers you. Any other perspective you can bring on. We can have one-on-one discussion.
We will take one last question.
One last.
Can I just add
Yeah,
one or
please.
two points on
Yes,
startups? So I think first of all, startup is very risky thing. 90% of the people who start fail. So that's the truth in Indian market. And this you should consider if you are planning to become an entrepreneur or even joining a startup, because a lot of jobs will be there next year where the team size is 30 people, 50 people. So you need to get deeper into that company. If you're applying for a job or if you want to start, then again you need to have a very deep thought before taking that step. That is first point I want to say. Second is sector is very important. And even in 2020, when a lot of sectors, commodities were going down, we have seen healthcare sector, we have seen education technology sector, online
EdTech,
learning sector. They were booming.
Booming, yeah.
They were booming at the best pace. And people who were there in the healthcare sectors, vaccination research, it's still booming. Somebody will ask you to spend $5,000, 5,000 rupees for a vaccination, you are more open as compared to 2018-19. So the overall, I think you need to get deeper into the human emotion science also. So there are a lot of external factors with which we take our decisions.
Yeah.
And I think Americans are very good in that. So that's why they're able to create a lot of brands. Other thing is, I think most of the Indian startups are known for innovation. So we are known as innovators. For example, you must have heard about cloud servers. There is no company in India that is actually, even the large ones, even the companies which have billions of dollars, they are not entering into this cloud space. So while we are writing the code, somebody is becoming a SaaS player, e-commerce data, everything is hosted on Amazon, Google Cloud, but nobody is actually working on that. Cryptocurrency, 2020 we saw 200 startups in the blockchain space. Recently, I've heard that there are startups who are coming up to manage your cryptocurrency taxation. So like we have ClearTax, we'll have another company just to manage your cryptocurrency tax calculation. But how many Indian entrepreneurs, even the richest one, like the founders of unicorns, nobody is thinking about setting up a cryptocurrency mining, even data centers for mining cryptocurrencies. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia, we have hardly heard any Saudi. We all know Saudi is just the petrol heaven, and that is 50 to 60% of their economy, followed by retail and other things. They are also going to launch their cryptocurrency. So I think one is the problem is in our education sector and even in our corporate sector where we are working, that we are only thinking of short-term problems. So nobody is just we are just so busy with our yearly numbers, and even if a recession is there, it will be there for 1 year, 2 year. But you have to work for next 20 years at least. At least you will reach 40, or if you are lucky, maybe you'll. But still, you have to work till for the next 10 years. So having a long-term view is very important.
Yeah, profitable, sustainable.
If you want to enter into the startup world,
I think you should also research that very nicely. You put in Saudi. Saudi, you should look for Vision 2030 plan. They have close to 30 startup projects. Like there's the NEOM's smart city concept. I'm sure in case you've been YouTubing or something, you would have heard about it. A smart city, which is completely built on wind and solar. And projects like space exploration, they are putting in $6 billion sort of an investment. So that is what, but they are thinking very long term. Somebody also beautifully said China. China has a 300-year plan ready. This is true. In terms of infra, in terms of, भले ही उनकी सरकार रहे ना रहे, because हर 100 साल बाद बदल जाती है. But they have this plan, they have a vision. That's a very, very important thing, right? Or startup के space में, because during your placements, you'll have a lot of this thing. कि मैं Britannia लूँ ICICI Bank लूँ या Cultfit लूँ या Ola लूँ, right? What I would say, it is a factor of a lot of your background, a lot of your financial risk capability, a lot of your personality. आप कितना learning चाहते हो? So definitely startup में learning next level की होगी. But what I would ideally implement that, in the starting phase of your corporate career, it's very critical that you be with a stable company, process-oriented company, to understand. Right now, you have a very limited understanding. And I'm sure out of this budding room, there will be a lot of people who will be planning entrepreneurial careers as well. Hats off to that. If you have that risk appetite and you have got it for what you want, sky's the limit. And also, I'll tell you, while learning process systems is over there, what I feel is learning is here. And there's a very powerful tool called YouTube. So go subscribe to channels like Think School, uh, Study IQ, Prashant Dhawan, and I think this. For example, if I want to do interior designing, they have end-to-end steps what to do in interior designing, which maybe a professional interior designing course may not teach me. Right? So what you could grow over there, get over there, if you have a risk appetite, you can go in over there. But yeah, you will have a great learning. Secondly, in terms of a life balance, I would say, be ready for the grill. As we said, that 996, 996, yeah, 996 or 9 to 5 a.m. So be prepared for that. The culture is aggressive and can also get abrasive, right? So that's all I can speak from this desk. Otherwise, I'm free to connect to discuss more. कि क्या होता है. But yeah, it's fun, I would say. If you're a fun person, if you're passionate, energetic, and having a high risk appetite, you may have fun.
Good evening, sir. Sir, so I want to ask to Mr. Kapoor, sir. We talk about sustainable development, zero carbon emission, but there are various heavy industry which depend solely on coal, and they are responsible for carbon footprints. So, if the government all of a sudden decides to put a ban on, let's say, coal, so how is going to be the road ahead for these heavy industries like steels, paper industries, and cement industries? So,
Yeah, so very nice question. And I was reading today only in the newspaper where our finance minister has categorically said that there is going to be no ban on coal, and coal will be required for powering India's growth, definitely, because it's required for the steel industry. So the idea then would be to utilize it better. Our efficiency of the coal fired power plants is very bad, so maybe have something there. Then the emissions can be purified also, the emissions at the power plant itself. And then you have things like carbon offsets, where you go and grow trees in equivalent to the pollution that you're creating, become green in other places. So obviously it will have to be a balance. It cannot be a pure blanket ban on coal. You slowly reduce consumption of coal in other parts of life, right? Maybe gas, but use a healthy balance. That's the whole idea. And as it is, I think we in India are quite ecologically conscious. And as there was a thing on WhatsApp that all our plastic bags are under our mattress, okay, for reuse. So so where is the plastic pollution? It is a per capita thing also that we need to consider, that India is pressurizing the world to consider the per capita emission part, not just the overall country's emission, right?
So I will touch maybe 30 seconds. Whose question was it? Can I know your name? Amar Jain. Aman Jain. Okay. By the way, great respect for Jains. 3% of the population, 24% of all India tax. So I can speak more on that. There's a lot to learn. Why I'm not a guy like that. Yeah. So if you go back to COP26, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a commitment that by 2030 we'll have 50% of the energy coming from renewable. Now that was a bold commitment, right? And India is actually working towards it. Secondly, you would be very surprised to know that out of this vehicular emissions which we spoke about, there's a lot of pollution which, like you see, right now is caused by a different lens, but that impacts our GDP to the tune of 3 to 4% every year, right? So there is a significant impact which you totally say. And from an EV space, trust me, a lot of changes are going to happen. And India, under Nitin Gadkari, has committed that even for a global mobility, we are going to shift even from an electric to a more renewable source, which is actually hydrogen, which is even challenged by somebody like an Elon Musk. Yeah, so these are the steps which India is taking, biomethane gas, and there is a lot of plans which you should go, because the entire mobility space is actually seeing the most significant shift. The cost of the battery which drives an EV vehicle, it has actually gone to almost 1/11th over the past 10 years, right? And it's further supposed to grow. So, and the EV adoption for India is actually by 2025, it should be to the tune of at least 30%. Right? So these amazing things are happening, and I'm sure, as PM Modi finally said, that पहले हम कबूतर उड़ाते थे, अब हम चीते छोड़ते हैं. Yeah, so that's it from our end, and thank you for being a lovely audience. My big thanks to Mr. Rahul, Mr. Suyesh, Mr. Prateek, and Satish sir for blessing the occasion.
Thank you to all the panelists for such an insightful discussion. I'm sure that your views on global economic shift and opportunities have stimulated all of us. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your valuable knowledge with all of us present here. We are sure that everyone will definitely take a major learning from this session we had today. Now, I would like to invite Manushree Negi to present a memento to Mr. Satyam Manohar. I would like to invite Aditya Arora to present a memento to Mr. Rahul Kapoor. I would like to invite Viraj Sharma, Member, Corporate Interaction Division, to present a memento to Mr. Suyash Mehrotra. I would like to invite Sachin Tomar, Member, Corporate Interaction Division, to present a memento to Mr. Prateek Dhingra. I would like to invite Janisa Kara, Member, Corporate Interaction Division, to present a memento to Mr. Satish Sati.
Thanks everyone again, and thanks for being a lovely audience. And from my side, thumbs up for the audience, huh? कुछ stock sectors वाले जो somebody had a, yeah, if you want to take a few questions outside, so happily. And even that cheetah and kabutar has got a very deep meaning. Just think towards it, you will get to know. So if you want to find out, we can see outside.
Everyone, please be seated.